Welcome to another Lawn Fun video. Today we're taking a look at the stamp set Sometimes Life is Prickly with the coordinating dies, as well as the new stamp set My Rainbow and its coordinating dies. So let's take a closer look. The Sometimes Life is Prickly stamp set has this super cute little porcupine that's holding a little cactus, which I just think is so adorable. There is also this great cactus image in the stamp set as well. The sentiments in this stamp set are Sometimes Life is Prickly, I'm Here for You, This Sucks, which goes great with these succulents, and I will always be here for you. There is also the sentiment that says I'm sorry I was prickly, which is perfect to add Quill You Forgive Me underneath. There's also some really small sentiments in this set, like I'm very sorry, this sucks, of course a little hugs, and I really messed up. There is a tiny little heart in this stamp set as well as a little face, which this little face is really fun to stamp on the cactus. You could also stamp the little heart on the pot of the cactus as well. Let's color these images. When I color a cactus, I think it's fun to pick two colors of green, and you could pick all kinds of colors of green for a cactus. You're going to see when I create my card that I use some different combinations so that they looked different. And I just add some shading along the bottom and then pull it up with the lightest color. The pot of the cactus is a really fun way to add some color to your cards, and you will see when I create a card later that I colored my cacti with different colored pots. And I'm just adding some shading on the sides and blending that out to create the roundness of the pot. Now for the little cactus that the porcupine is holding, I pulled out some different greens. I'm using some pink for the flower on top, and for the pot I will use some yellows. Now for my porcupine, I'm starting with some shading with my E74, and then I will use my E71 to blend that out. You could use any combination of browns that you have in your stash for these cute little porcupines. I also like to go back over it with an even darker color and highlight the quills a little bit, which you're going to see me do here in just a second. So I'm going to grab my E77, which is a little bit darker, and just trace over those little quill marks. For the body of my porcupine, I like to use some lighter colors, so I have some very pale browns. I'm using that E00 for my kind of shadowy shaded areas, and then I'll blend out with that E000. And then, of course, we want to add a little pink to his ears and his nose, and I'm going to add some rosy cheeks as well. Here are the coordinating dies that you can bend apart or snip with your wire snips, and you can just line them up with the images we've colored, hold them in place with a little bit of low-tack tape, and run them through your die cut machine. And now we have this cute little porcupine and a cute little cactus. And I just think that porcupine with the cactus is so cute. Now let's take a look at the My Rainbow stamp set. So the My Rainbow stamp set has this cute little unicorn, which matches perfectly with the Unicorn Picnic stamp set. There's also a great little rainbow. We have two different clouds going in two different directions. There's also a cute little fairy in this stamp set, and of course our little fairy needs a magic wand. And we also have some little sparkles. So there's a little trio of sparkles, there is one single large sparkle, and then there is a teeny tiny little solid sparkle that's perfect for stamping in some colored inks. So here's a closer look at those little stamped images. There is also a smiley face, as well as a little smirky smiley face, and these are perfect to put in the clouds. In addition to the smiles, we have the little stamp to stamp some rosy cheeks as well. For the sentiment in this stamp set, it says, "You are my rainbow on a cloudy day." And I like that the rainbow is open so you can color in the letters. There's also Stay Magical and a little poof. That little poof I think is so much fun. We can stamp that beside our little fairy wand. Now let's add some color to our images. For my rainbow, I will use two colors for each bow of the rainbow, a lighter and a darker, and I'll just blend the darker from the edges towards the center. This little rainbow has 5 sections, so I will be stopping at blue, but don't worry, I will add some purple to my little unicorn. To color the clouds, I will color 2 different ways. I like a blue cloud or a gray cloud. For this cloud, I'm starting with kind of a darker blue and I trace the inside edge. Then I blend it out with a lighter blue, and then I'll completely blend this out with a colorless blender. And once this soaks into the paper and dries, it will kind of blend out to white. Now for the other cloud, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm using some cool grays, and this just has a very different look. I think that this is a fun way to color clouds if you're using a blue background, and the blue is really fun if you have a different color background. For my little unicorn, I'm pulling out these same colors that I used on the rainbow to color the areas of the mane and the tail. So I'm using my warm colors on the mane. So I have the pink, the orange, and then I use the yellow as well as on the horn. And then there are 3 sections of the tail, and this is where I'll use my cool colors. So I have the green, the blue, and here's where I'm going to pull in that purple. I'm also going to use this purple color for the little hooves of my unicorn. For the body of the unicorn, I don't want it to be stark white, so I'm using some really pale browns because this gives it a nice creamy color. You could also color this in all kinds of colors, kind of like My Little Pony. Remember how those were all colorful? I'm adding a little pink to the ear and a little pink cheek. For the little sparkles, I'm just going to dab a little bit of yellow marker into those sparkles as well as the fairy wand. And then for my little fairy, I'm using some aqua for her wings, purple for her dress, pink for her hair, and then an E11 for her skin tone. To use the coordinating dies, simply bend them apart or snip them apart with your wire snips and line them up with the images. Hold them in place with a little bit of low-tack tape, and then you can run them through your die cut machine. And here are all these cute little images from the My Rainbow stamp set. I think it's fun to make the rainbow kind of start or end inside one of the clouds. Of course, you can have your little fairy hold the fairy wand, and these little sparkles are really fun to kind of embellish around your images. So let's take these images and make a card. So I'm starting with some aqua colored spiffy speckles paper and some white paper, both of which I've cut with the outside in stitch rectangle. I am going to stamp the sentiment, "You are my rainbow on a cloudy day," in the bottom left corner of my white cardstock. I'm stamping this with some lawnfawn jet black ink because I do want to do a little bit of coloring to color in all the letters of that sentiment. Once I have that stamped in the bottom corner, now I can see where to cut the top of my clouds. So I have the largest of the puffy cloud borders, and I'm just going to line this up where I like it above that sentiment, and then I'll cut this white piece of paper. So this is going to layer along the bottom of that spiffy speckles rectangle. So I'll just hold that in place with some tape and run that through my die cut machine, and you can see how that is going to layer at the bottom. But first we need to color in our letters, and I'm pulling out the lighter tones of all of the colors that I used to color my rainbow as well as my unicorn, and I'm just filling in each of these letters. Now there are 7 letters in the word rainbow, so you're going to see that I skip over the B and move to the O with my blue, and that's because when I have 7 like this, I like to add a little bit of teal into my rainbow. So I'll go back to that B with a teal color that I did not use on my images. Now for my spiffy speckles background, I thought it would be fun to add some subtle clouds stenciled on this background paper. So I'm using my stamp wheel platform to hold my piece of paper in place. I'm using some kiddie pull ink and the cloudy backdrop stencil, and I'm just going in with a light hand to add some subtle texture to this background in the shape of clouds. And you can kind of see how it's starting to come together. And I'm just working my way towards the bottom, but I don't need to go all the way to the bottom because I have this lovely die cut white cloud that's going to go at the bottom. So I'm just darkening up the edges a little bit as well to kind of make it all match. Now, because this is cut with the outside in stitch rectangle, you are going to have a little border around the sides, and I thought it would be nice to add some pink for that border. So I've just cut a piece of some strawberry frosting pink spiffy speckles paper. I'm adding that to a card base, so this is 4¼ by 5½. In this way, I will have a nice pink border around my blue panel. So I can just add this blue panel and I have that fun border that matches that speckled paper. Now before I add my clouds to my card, I do want to do a little bit of stamping. And I'm stamping those little sparkles onto that background with some sunflower ink. And I am actually just tapping off my stamping somewhere else because I had stamped these with black ink and I want to make sure that I don't have any black ink with my yellow ink. So I'm just testing them kind of off screen. So I stamped the trio of sparkles, the big sparkle, and then I love this little tiny one because it's so small you can kind of just stamp a whole bunch of these all over the place. And look at those beautiful yellow sparkles. Now I added some foam tape to the back of this so it can be popped up off that background and have some really fun dimension. I'll also add foam squares to my little images as I add them to my card so that they are popped up as well. So I have that cute little unicorn that I colored earlier. I did color some more clouds and add another face to one of them, so I have 3 clouds here. And I'm going to have my rainbow come out of the cloud couple, we'll call it, at the bottom and go up to that cloud at the top. So I'm just adding these on here so I can kind of see my placement and know where to add my images. I'll add the foam squares to the rainbow, and since I laid those clouds there, I know the placement of my rainbow. Then I can add my little cloud at the top. And I decided it would be a good idea to kind of glue these 2 clouds together and kind of put them together as one. So I'll add a little bit of liquid glue to the corner and go ahead and layer these together and add foam squares to the back of my other cloud. So now this acts all as one piece and I can get it lined up perfectly. I need to add my little magic wand to my fairy's hand, and I will put her on there with a foam square as well. And then I also have the little die cut sparkles that I cut earlier, and I want to use those as well. I thought that would be fun around the fairy, but I actually liked them up here at the cloud. Before I'm finished, I wanted to add the little bitty sentiments. So of course, we have that little poof that is perfect for the magical fairy wand. And then I pulled out one of the speech bubbles from all the speech bubbles. I'm going to stamp this in some merman ink so it kind of matches the background and doesn't stand out too much. And then I will stamp the little sentiment that says "so magical" inside there. You could also use a speech bubble cut with the die. And of course, since this is a magical card, we have to have some glitter. So I will add glitter to my sparkles, my fairy wings, my wand, my clouds, my rainbow. Pretty much everything on this card has some glitter added to it. So I'll add it to my unicorn as well. I always like to trace over some colored in letters like this with some sparkle. I think it just brings even more to the sentiment. And then I also like to trace puffy clouds with sparkle. So like I said, pretty much sparkle everywhere. And here is my finished card, and I love how this turned out. I love those subtle clouds in the background, and that sentiment just makes me smile. Next up, I'm going to create a card with the Sometimes Life is Prickly stamp set. And I've already colored and cut out my images, which we will take a closer look at when I start to assemble my card. I am using the Rainbow Ever After Petite paper pack for my papers in my background. I'm using that rainbow stripe as well as that blue polka dot. I'm going to line up the largest of the outside in stitch rectangles with my stripes and cut that out. And I will do the same with the blue, and I only need a portion at the bottom for the blue. Next, I will go ahead and stamp the sentiment that I'm using that says, "Sometimes life is prickly. I will always be here for you." And I'm stamping this in some black ink along the bottom of this blue polka dot panel. Then I can just add some adhesive and line this up along the bottom to create the panel for my little scene. I am adding this to a kraft cardstock card base, so I have that cute little kraft mat around the sides. And now I can start to add my images. And as you can see, I have 6 cacti. And I colored them in 3 different combinations of green so that I can have a line of these across my card, but they don't all look exactly the same. Then I colored all of the little pots in different rainbow colors to match my rainbow stripe background. For the cacti in the back, I'm adding these with some thin foam squares so they're popped up a little bit off the background. And then for these, like that blue one that I just put down in the front, I'm using some full thickness foam squares. You could accomplish this by doubling up your foam squares as well if you do not have 2 different thicknesses. I just think that this is a fun way to add even more dimension to your card to kind of have 2 levels of your images. So I'll use the full thickness foam squares for this cactus, and I will do the same for my little porcupine in the middle because he really needs to stand out in the center. Next, I'm taking that little heart from the stamp set, some guava ink, and I'm stamping some little hearts up in that striped paper, just kind of scattering them around in the sky. And I'm also going to take that little stamp set that says hugs and stamp a couple of those above my porcupine as well. And then here is my finished card. Sometimes life is prickly. I love those different colored cacti in the rainbow pots. Now let's take a look at some examples from the design team. I love Elena's card and how she combined the stamp set with others to create a cute little scene. Audrey's card is so much fun. I love those cacti stamped in black and white with the colorful porcupine in the middle. And then Yainea's card is so cute. I love how she used the big die cut letters to create her sentiment. Letitia's card is super colorful, and I love the one layer look that she created. And then here is a card by Mindy where she used these Simply Celebrate succulents to add even more succulents to her little scene. This card by Grace is so much fun. I love that sparkly, scripty friends, and that background made from washi tape is so cool. This fun Give It a Whirl card by Megan combines my rainbow with Unicorn Picnic to create a really fun card. And this card by Maureen is so much fun. I love how she used the rainbows in the corners and added some more little fairies to the scene. This card by Callie is another really fun Give It a Whirl card that combines my rainbow with Unicorn Picnic, as well as a fun foiled sentiment. Melissa created this super fun card. I love the different colored unicorns and that bright pink background. And then this card by Elise is so cute. I love how she used the soft pastel ombre paper for her background. Then here is another look at the 2 cards that I created in the video today using my rainbow and Sometimes Life is Prickly. Thank you so much for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye!